8 spine-chilling secrets from psychiatric wards. What was hidden among the patients? Sarah's heart raced as she gazed at the hulking brick building looming ahead. The psychiatric ward, rumored to house horrors best left unspoken, felt like a dark creature eyeing her. Chills ran down her spine, thoughts of her son Kevin swirling in despair. Since that day Dr. Hargrove had invited him over for art lessons, Kevin had changed. Dark circles under his eyes spoke of restless nights, and his sketches distorted the world around them into nightmarish forms. What had Hargrove done to him? The ward's waiting area was dead silent, a stillness that felt suffocating. It echoed with hushed whispers and muffled cries from behind the glass doors. Patients with sunken eyes watched her, the urgency of their gaze sending a shiver through Sarah. Each visit filled her with a gnawing dread, as if she were trespassing in a realm of nightmares. Don't let them take him, a gaunt man had warned her just yesterday, his wild hair and trembling hands leaving an imprint of fear in Sarah's mind. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As days crept by, Sarah dug deeper, uncovering whispers of vanished patients and twisted experiments tied to Dr. Hargrove. The screaming shadows in Kevin's sketches seemed all too real. The thought of those lost souls echoed in her mind. The way other patients looked at her was like a warning wrapped in fear. Their hollow eyes spoke of truths she wasn't ready to face. Each time she entered the ward, the oppressive atmosphere thickened, and the laughter of unseen horrors seemed to curl around her, taunting her. The walls felt like they were closing in as she confronted Hargrove, his smile a chilling mask. Flickering fluorescent lights cast eerie shadows across his face, creating a scene she couldn't shake off. "You should leave, Miss Harris," he intoned, his voice sultry yet ominous. Just then, the lights flickered and died, plunging them into a gut-wrenching darkness. Sarah's breath hitched as the acrid scent of something rotten filled the air while hysterical laughter ricocheted in the void. Suddenly, the lights blazed back, and there was Kevin, standing in the corner. His eyes were glazed, lost in a world only he could see. Clutched in his hands was a sketchbook, filled with monstrous figures that seemed to writhe and pulse on the page. A visceral scream tore through the hallways, raw and gut-wrenching, a sound so piercing that Sarah felt it shatter her insides. In that moment, reality crashed around her. She was trapped in a waking nightmare, her heart racing, adrenaline overlaying the dread that threatened to engulf her. She failed to protect her son, a realization that suffocated her. Everything she fought against was drawing nearer. The shadows of the ward loomed larger, and Sarah knew she had to escape before she lost both her mind and her son to the malevolence lurking within those walls. How far was she willing to go to save him? Desperation thrummed in her veins as she prepared to confront whatever secrets lay hidden in that sinister psych ward. The walls seemed to pulse around Sarah, the air thick with dread. She could hear echoes of Kevin's laughter fading into sinister giggles as she struggled to grasp reality. Her instincts screamed at her to flee, yet the sight of Kevin, consumed by shadows, tethered her feet to the floor. "Kevin!" she called, her voice trembling, barely able to pierce the overwhelming quiet. The boy turned to her slowly, his expression blank yet unnervingly calm, as if he were no longer her son but a vessel for something dark. The sketchbook in his hands seemed to throb with a life of its own, hypnotic illustrations swirling into shapes that scratched at the back of her mind. Dr. Hargrove stepped closer, his figure towering, a predator pleased with its prey. "Children like him can be so malleable," he drawled, his eyes gleaming with sadistic delight. "They see things differently. Touching the mind's dark recesses is part of the healing process. You should trust the process." Trust? The word made her stomach churn. She felt as though the walls were crawling closer, eager to envelop her in their suffocating embrace. Panic clawed at her insides. What had they done to Kevin? The pressures of the situation thickened the air, and an oppressive weight crushed her chest. She forced herself to take a step forward, prompting Kevin to respond. "Mommy, look." He flipped the sketchbook toward her, images swirling with grotesque forms twisted, writhing bodies stretching and convulsing in a surreal dance of terror. They moved as if alive, creeping under her skin and curling her fingers into tight fists. Her heartbeat quickened, resonating loudly in her ears. "Kevin, please, you have to listen to me. We need to get out of here, now." The desperation in her voice echoed back at her with eerie resonance as Hargrove chuckled softly, enjoying the show. "Do you not see? You're too late." His voice was honey-coated poison, slithering around her thoughts. "He has become someone much greater than you can imagine. Embrace the shadows, the chaos. It's where true art is born." With horror, Sarah realized Hargrove was right. There was a sliver of truth in his madness. Kevin was slipping away. She had to break through the fog wrapping around his mind. She launched forward, grabbing the sketchbook from his hands. "Kevin, remember when we would draw together? Remember when you created the happiest worlds?" The moment her fingers grazed the book's cover, a tremor ran through her, a wave of darkness threatening to engulf her. Suddenly, a loud bang rattled the room. The emergency lights flickered back on, illuminating narrow, dark corridors. The patients behind the glass doors were shouting now, writhing against their restraints, their voices blending in a chaotic cacophony of fear. "Let him go," Sarah screamed, clutching the book tightly, staring into Kevin's vacant eyes, searching for any flicker of recognition. For a brief second, she saw it something human, a whisper of her son beneath the layers of horror that had taken hold of him. But then, the lights flickered again, drawing shadows from every corner. A haunting howl seemed to rise from within the walls. Sarah felt a surge of terror wash over her, an understanding that the ward held more secrets than she could fathom. Each creak and groan of the building felt like a warning no one was safe here. The ground beneath her shifted as Kevin stepped back, his grip loosening, a hesitant smile crossing his lips. "Can't you feel it, Mommy?" There is so much beauty in the darkness. Her mind raced, realization dawning like a sharp blade at her throat. If she didn't act quickly, those shadows would consume them both. "No, Kevin. Fight it. We have to escape." But as she lunged for him, the floor trembled violently, splitting underfoot with a ghastly roar. The ward was alive, shrieking with fury. The path before her collapsed, and Sarah felt herself being pulled into the depths of despair. Somewhere within the shadows, she could hear Kevin's soft whisper, "Join us, Mommy." What awaited her below was unknown, but Sarah had no choice. She had to descend into the darkness to save her son from the monster behind those walls, or risk becoming another lost spirit haunting the corridors of despair. As she grasped for Kevin, a figure emerged from the murk, its presence chilling her very soul. Who, or what, was hidden in the darkness? Sarah stumbled into the abyss, the sketchbook clutched tightly against her chest. As the floor crumbled beneath her, she tried to reach for anything solid, but her fingers slipped through shadows that felt alive, eager to drag her into their depths. Silence wrapped around her like a shroud, broken only by the distant sounds of Kevin's voice echoing through the darkness. "Mommy, join us." She couldn't let him go. The fear in her gut propelled her deeper into the void. A chill swept over her, leaving icy tendrils tracing her spine. Where was the figure she sensed moments ago? Had it vanished, or lingered just beyond her sight, waiting for its moment to strike? "Kevin," she shouted, her voice trembling, lost in the endless blackness. "Where are you?" A flicker of light danced in the corners of her vision, a flash of fluorescent glow, warped and flickering as if the very essence of hope was distorted. She pushed forward, heart racing in sync with the flickering pulse, praying it would lead her to Kevin. But as she drew nearer, the light revealed twisted faces and haunted eyes pressed against the walls. They were patients, their expressions masked with terror, mournful whispers escaping their cracked lips. One man, staring blankly, opened his mouth in a silent scream. She felt their desperation seep into her soul, the weight of their sadness almost palpable. "Help us," they murmured in a ghostly chorus. "Help us, she's coming for you," she pressed on, ignoring their plea. "I have to find my son," she cried, fear thickening around her like molasses. Another burst of light, and there through the gloom was the silhouette of Kevin, his small frame illuminated by an otherworldly glow. "Mommy, I'm here." His voice pulled at her heart, a beacon of warmth amidst the freezing terror. Yet, his grin appeared unnaturally wide, something dreadful lurking beneath that innocent facade. "Kevin." She lunged toward him, but as she did, the ground shifted violently again. It felt as though the very foundation of the ward was alive, eager to tear apart any semblance of connection they had left. "Don't trust her," shrieked a voice from the shadows, the panic bubbling up and spilling over in a visceral wave. "The doctor, she's not who you think she is." Sarah's chest tightened. The sinister echo of Dr. Hargrove's amused tone filled the air. "The line between reality and imagination can blur so beautifully," he had said, and she could almost feel the chill of his laughter wrapping around her like a cloak. What was real anymore? "We have to go, Kevin. Now," she cried, reaching out for him. Yet something twisted her insides, urging her to look back. Shadows darted among the patients, whispers growing louder, a haunting symphony of despair. "Join us," they repeated, voices swirling like a wicked wind, drawing her closer. "Become one with the darkness, no," Sarah roared. "I won't lose him." Just then, she caught a glimpse of something glimmering. A shard of glass, sharp and deadly, lay on the ground near Kevin's feet. It was a promise, an escape route. "Kevin, step into the light. I need you to believe in me." His face flickered, the boy she knew battling against whatever monstrosity had invaded him. For a brief moment, the light in his eyes shimmered, revealing the boy she loved. "I want to, Mommy," but the shadows pressed in closer, tendrils snaking around her legs, dragging her down, sealing their grips around her heart. She felt herself slipping, losing the battle against the darkness that clawed at her mind. "Mommy, help!" Kevin's voice echoed, warping anew into a ghastly sound. As the shadows tightened their hold, Sarah knew only one thing: it was now or never. With all her strength, she lunged forward, grasping for Kevin, the piece of glass glinting dangerously at her side. What would she become if she succumbed to the darkness? If there was a chance to pull him back, she had to take it. She broke through the barriers of shadow. A piercing scream erupted through the ward. A light so bright it hurt her eyes, engulfed everything. In that moment, Sarah understood. Something waited for them both. Beyond the light, a monster that didn't wish to let them go. Would they escape the clutches of despair? Or would they fall victim to the darkness that hungered for their souls? The blinding light swallowed Sarah whole, a sudden jolt of brightness that forced her to squint, shielding her eyes as she stumbled into the unknown. Her heart thundered, the echo ringing in her ears. She gasped for breath, every inhale laced with a metallic taste of fear. Where was Kevin? Had they escaped together? Panic clawed at her throat as she felt the ground shift beneath her. Slowly, a familiar form began to emerge from the light. There was Kevin, standing just a few feet away, and yet infinitely far. The glow around him dimmed, revealing the labyrinthine corridors of the ward. But the walls here were slimy and pulsating, as if the building itself were alive, breathing, hungry. "Kevin," she shouted, her throat raw. "Come to me." But he remained frozen, staring ahead with that same unnaturally wide grin. His small hands clasped together as if in prayer. "Mommy, look at the pretty colors," he sang, voice dripping with a childlike glee that sent a shiver down her spine. "Kevin, please." She stepped forward, but the floor felt like quicksand, pulling her toward an abyss that threatened to open beneath her feet. Struggling to regain footing, she felt a rush of air that smelled of decay, a reminder of the ghost she had just escaped. The walls chuckled, laughter echoing back at her, a cacophony of madness. Join us," they whispered, clawing at the edges of her sanity. Shadows swung and danced, taunting her, their long fingers pointing at Kevin, beckoning her to come closer. "No," she shouted, shaking her head fiercely, willing her body to move. "You're not my Kevin." Something deep inside her shook as she faced that hollow semblance of her son. This was not the boy who played with dinosaurs or colored pictures with her. This was something else entirely. Something twisted and wrong that a flicker of her son's real self sparked in his eyes, and she seized it, hoping against hope. "Kevin, your mommy loves you, remember this." She clutched the sketchbook tightly. "Remember the drawings? Remember the park?" For a moment it seemed to work. Kevin's grin faltered, replaced by confusion. "Mommy?" he whispered. In that fleeting act of recognition, she felt a surge of hope. She transformed it into strength, willing the darkness to recede. Her eyes danced over the periphery, searching for more light, any sign of salvation for both of them. But then the shadows lunged. The whispering intensified, wrapping around her like a noose. "You've lost him," they hissed. "He belongs to us now." "No," she screamed, her voice shattering the clamoring noise. "I won't let you take him." Determined, Sarah's gaze fell upon the shard of glass glinting again nearby, reflecting the last of the light. Instinctively, she lunged for it, the cold grip of desperation driving her forward. With the shard firmly in her hand, she turned back to Kevin. "I'm coming for you." As she plunged toward him, something massive loomed in the light's brightness. A vast shadow, darker than the night, coalescing like smoke given form. An entity that shouldn't exist, a creature with obsidian eyes, piercing and cold. It waited, hungry and patient, like a predator lurking in tall grass. Suddenly, Kevin's face morphed, his innocent facade peeling back to reveal something monstrous and grotesque beneath. "You should have joined us, Mommy," he sneered, stretching his jaw wider than humanly possible. That a scream bubbled in her throat, raw and primal, as the heart-stopping realization struck. Escape was just a seductive illusion. She had walked into a trap. What if all she held onto her son? Her sanity was a cruel trick devised by the ward's ancient evil? With the darkness closing in, and Kevin sliding deeper into horror, Sarah had no choice. She had to confront the monster approaching. But as she raised the shard, fury and love entwined in her veins. One terrifying question pulsated through her mind. What if she had already lost everything? And in that instant, the shadow lunged. Sarah felt the ground buckle beneath her as the shadow surged forward, a monstrous wave of darkness swallowing the light. She stumbled back, instinctively raising the shard of glass, its edge reflecting her terrified face. A shrill scream echoed off the walls, her own, distorted and hollow, mixing in with the sinister laughter that rose from the shadows. "Mommy, Mommy, Mommy," Kevin's voice rang out, his sweet tones twisted into a mocking chant as he stood there, eyes widened and hollow, still trapped in that grotesque form. The pulse of the walls quickened, a disorienting rhythm that beat like a heart, urging her to surrender. "No," she hissed through gritted teeth. With every ounce of strength, Sarah lunged at the shadow, the shard aimed directly at the heart of darkness that hurtled toward her. But instead of hitting flesh, the glass met a gust of cold air, as if the shadow had evaporated into smoke, only to reform again, larger and angrier. A spine-chilling chill flooded the corridor, freezing Sarah to the spot. She heard whispers, a cacophony rising and fading, blending together into a dreadful lullaby. "Come play with us, stay forever lost and forgotten, get away from him," she screamed, swinging the shard wildly, desperation pushing her back into motion. She dashed toward Kevin, but an invisible barrier locked her in place, forcing her to fight against the unyielding pull of the ward's foul intent. Kevin's face shifted again, jaw stretching wide, teeth sharpening as he grinned, revealing a maw fit for nightmares. "Help me, Mommy," he hissed, voice dripping with that haunting blend of innocence and malevolence. "Please, Kevin, fight it," she cried, gripping the shard tightly, her knuckles pale against the cold glass. "You're stronger than this. You're my son." The glow of the ward dimmed, a strangling darkness creeping in. She felt it weave around her ankles, clawing at her, trying to drag her into the abyss. The laughter escalated, echoing through the confined space, creating a whirlwind of madness spinning faster and faster. "Join us," the shadows taunted, laughter turning into a symphony of despair and agony. Voices layered over one another, all pleading and demanding at once. "Shut up," Sarah bellowed, thrusting the shard toward her son. "You're not him," summoning every painful memory, every smile, every laugh. The warmth of their shared moments, she forced them through the haze. "You are Kevin, my Kevin." The entity shrouded in darkness faltered, the air pregnant with tension. Kevin's face flickered, morphing again, moments of clarity passing over him like shadows across a moonlit night. "Mommy?" he whispered, the monstrous laughter tempered momentarily, allowing a fragile thread of hope to weave between them. "Yes, Kevin. It's me." But the shadows clawed harder, lurching back, the bond between them bending. The angry entity surged forward again, its obsidian eyes piercing into Sarah's soul, emanating an overwhelming vortex of despair. She felt her resolve waver, the darkness whispering sweetly in her mind. "Join us, you will find peace now." With a scream louder than the madness around her, Sarah thrust the shard forward once more, embracing the cold fury that surged within. Just then, the shadows erupted, a tempest of rage and malice pressing against her. The walls of the ward began to warp, howling with anguish, and she could feel the psychic weight bearing down on her. "Mommy!" Kevin screeched, the innocence flaring up again just as the shadows wrapped around them, an unholy cocoon of dark desires. In that moment, Sarah faced the truth. She was out of time. If she didn't act now, she would lose him forever. With her heart hammering, she grit her teeth and turned the shard toward her own palm, ready to make the ultimate sacrifice. But before she could strike, the walls quivered, and a tremor resonated through the ground, splitting the air with a deafening roar. Then everything went dark. Against the thick veil of blackness, the echoes of laughter swirled, growing fainter but more chilling. And just as she felt herself slipping away into nothingness, a voice broke through the silence, whispering a secret that could change everything. "The truth is hidden behind the door." What was the truth? What door awaited her? Suddenly, the world erupted back into chaotic color, a violent clash of shadows and blinding light. Sarah gasped, eyes wide, frantically scanning her surroundings. The sweet smell of antiseptic flooded her senses, harsh against the metallic tang of fear still lingering in the air. She was no longer in the corridor. The oppressive darkness had dissipated, revealing what appeared to be a sterile room bustling with life, but not the kind she wanted to see. Rows of empty beds, each dressed in crisp white sheets, filled the room. It was eerie in its cleanliness, as if prepared for visitors that would never come. The walls were lined with old, yellowed photographs, once familiar faces, now lost to time and madness. Sarah's heart raced. Something felt wrong, very wrong. "Kevin!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the silence. Panic gripped her throat as she stumbled forward, searching for her son among the empty beds. The fluorescent lights flickered ominously overhead, casting strange shadows that danced and twisted, mirroring her turmoil. A gust of chilled air brushed past her, and she felt an unsettling presence loom behind her. "Mommy!" The voice was faint, a whisper barely above the sound of an echo. She spun around, panic twisting her gut tighter. But it wasn't Kevin. A figure stood at the far end of the room, silhouetted against the hazy light. It was a nurse, or at least it wore the uniform. The face, however, was obscured by shadows. "They are all waiting," the figure said, the voice hollow and disjointed. "For what?" Sarah demanded, her voice shaking. "Where is my son?" The shadowy nurse tilted her head, groaning, like an old door creaking open. "The door, it's hidden. But you need to unlock the truth." "What do you mean?" Sarah felt her nails dig into her palms. "There lies the answer, but only for those who dare to seek it," the nurse replied, inching closer yet always remaining swathed in darkness. Her other hand reached out slowly, fingers beckoning, extending as if trying to grasp something unseen. The scream erupted from her throat before she could comprehend it. Throwing herself into a sprint, she bolted towards the nearest bed, hoping to find Kevin under the blankets. But her fingers swept through the sheets, only to discover emptiness. The tears streamed down her cheeks, blurring her vision. "Come play with us," the voices returned, creeping back into her mind, twisting happiness into something sinister once more. "No, stay away." She stumbled backwards, feeling her heel catch on the edge of a bed. She teetered, then fell hard onto the floor. The impact left her breathless, stars rattling behind her eyes, but she forced herself up. Immediately, she noticed something impossible: a door, small and slightly ajar, nestled behind a cluster of cabinets. It hadn't been there moments ago. The whispers intensified, seductive and haunting. "Do you want to know the truth, Sarah?" With her heart pounding, Sarah staggered toward it. She needed to know what had happened, not just to Kevin, but to everyone trapped in this sick facade. She grasped the door handle, cold metal biting into her palm as she turned it as it creaked open. A blinding light poured from the crack, fiercely illuminating her surroundings and pushing back the shadows. She leaned in, peering through the threshold. What she saw made her blood run cold. Behind the door lay not safety, but a twisted version of the very room she stood in. No beds, no walls, only sprawling darkness and those lost faces trapped in haunting glee, beckoning her to join their eternal torment. "Mommy!" Kevin's voice echoed from within. The door trembled as if it craved passage, promising answers and perhaps her son. "Kevin!" she screamed, desperation fueling her. Suddenly, a burst of laughter rang out, rising above everything, vibrating through her very bones. "Join us, Sarah, it's the only way." Terror surged. The shadows pulsed as if alive, and she felt the weight of countless eyes watching, waiting. Could she step through? Could she possibly face whatever lay beyond that threshold? The light flickered momentarily, illuminating the faces behind the dark. One of them smiled Kevin's smile, but it twisted into something unrecognizable. Sarah closed her eyes tight, resolute. She had to. For him. With a single breath, she stepped forward, the air crackling with a palpable intensity as the door swung wide. What awaited her on the other side? The moment Sarah crossed the threshold, the sensation was like stepping into icy water. It pulled at her, dragged her deeper into an abyss where time twisted, where nothing made sense. A thick darkness engulfed her, swallowing every hint of light she had just emerged from. The whispering voices surged, morphing into a cacophony of overlapping cries and laughter that filled her ears, drowned out her thoughts. "Mommy!" Kevin's voice echoed clearer now, like a lifebuoy thrown into the stormy sea of her panic. She clawed through the dark, every instinct telling her to run, yet her heart cried for him. "Kevin, I'm coming." She stumbled forward, the ground shifting beneath her feet, each step jarring and disorienting. Her hands reached out, brushing against something cold and solid, the remnants of a childish toy. A broken carousel horse, its colors faded and chipped. It was a harsh reminder of innocence lost. "Join us, Sarah." The voices washed over her again, soft yet sinister, swarming her senses. She could barely breathe, hands shaking uncontrollably as the darkness seemed to close in tighter. The laughter grew louder, mocking her desperation. "Get away from me," she screamed, and the shadows flinched at her resolve. For the first time, the figures beyond her blurred vision receded slightly, revealing grotesque shapes. Contorted faces merged in grotesque joy. They danced and twirled, their movements jarring and unnatural. "Please, where are you?" Sarah cried, her heart racing faster than ever. Her own voice crumbled into the fray, a tiny spark against the looming dark. "Mommy!" Kevin's voice came again, more faint, like a distant memory. "Mommy, I'm scared." The ground beneath her shimmered with dread, pulsating like the rhythm of her own quickening heartbeat. Suddenly, another door appeared before her, glimmering in the dark. It looked ancient and rusty, its surface marred by scratches and marks that resembled desperate clawing. Without thinking, she rushed toward it. A shot of hope momentarily lifted her chest, but the faces behind her hissed in displeasure. "You mustn't leave us, you are ours now." She pressed her hand against the door, cold metal pressing back like an icy grip. The moment she turned the handle, everything around her screamed, the laughter shattered into shards of pain, piercing her ears. Inside was a chamber twisted from her nightmares. Kevin's silhouette emerged slowly, flickering in and out like a dying light bulb. He stood far from the door, face obscured by shadows but unmistakably her son. "Mommy, help me." He stretched his arms toward her, the innocence in his voice a stark contrast to the grotesqueries that filled the edges of her vision. "Kevin." She lunged, but the room warped, shifting her closer to those terrible faces again. They reached out hungrily, fingers twisted, lips curled into grins painted with malice. "Let him go," Sarah screamed, desperate fury replacing her fear. But the figures only laughed, a torrent of wicked laughter that felt as though it would drown her. "Join us, learn the truth," they chanted, the words clawing at her insides. No, she shut her eyes, refusing to listen. There was no truth in the shadow's embrace. The only truth was the love she held for Kevin. "Stay with us," the nurse's voice returned, echoing, weaving through the chaos like a specter. "Only the truth can set you free." Sorrows clawed at her heart, and she felt herself being pulled apart, torn between the world of shadows and the light that flickered behind her. She whirled around, back towards the door. Could she return? Would it take her away from this horror? In that moment of decision, the laughter rose again, louder than ever, until it drowned out everything else, threatening to tear apart her sanity. "Mommy," Kevin's voice faded to a whisper, and she felt the darkness coiling tighter around her. Just before she could step through the portal again, the ground began to quake, and the figures lunged forward, reaching out for her. Everything went white and then nothing. What would she find when the darkness finally released her? And would she ever find her way back to Kevin? Sarah gasped as she jolted back to consciousness, her body hitting a cold floor. She blinked in confusion, her senses assaulted by the lingering chill of the darkness that had just enveloped her. She was alone, but the echoes of laughter and whispers still vibrated in the air around her. As she scrambled to her feet, the unsettling environment came into focus. She stood in a dim room with peeling wallpaper and a single flickering bulb overhead. Shadows stretched along the walls like gnarled fingers, causing her heart to race as dread settled in the pit of her stomach. "Kevin," she called out again, more urgent this time. Silence greeted her, heavy and suffocating. She turned towards a window, its glass clouded and grimy. Mustering her strength, she approached and peered through, wishing to glimpse the world outside, a world free of the horrors that plagued her. What she saw sent a chill through her. A desolate landscape, barren and twisted like a graveyard, littered with broken toys and remnants of past lives. There were no signs of life, only ghostly shapes drifting in and out of her vision, each one reminiscent of the grotesque figures she had seen in the dark. "Mommy," a familiar voice, barely above a whisper, broke through her thoughts. It was Kevin. The sound drifted from somewhere deeper inside, pulling her like a moth drawn to a flame. "Kevin, where are you?" She stepped back from the window, unconsciously stepping on splintered wood that crunched beneath her feet. The sound echoed, amplifying the terror clawing at her heart. "Follow the light." The voice was faint yet insistent, weaving through the silence like a lifeline. She hesitated, tangles of fear coiling around her like the very shadows that haunted this place. But the thought of Kevin, alone and afraid, made her resolve strengthen. With shaky breaths, she moved away from the window, her footsteps cautious but deliberate. Each room she passed was a prison of memories, a whirlwind of emotions swirling through the air. Faded photographs hung askew, depicting families smiling blissfully amidst the decay. She felt a pang of envy for their innocence as she stepped through the remnants of shattered lives. "Mommy!" The voice grew stronger, pulling her toward a door at the end of the hall. It was slightly ajar, a sliver of light seeping out like a promise of hope. "Kevin!" She yelled again, fear elevating her urgency as she reached for the handle. Her fingers trembled, and she pushed the door open with a creak that echoed like a gunshot. Inside, the room looked like a twisted nursery. Stuffed animals lay scattered across the floor, their glassy eyes staring blankly at her. There was a small bed in the corner, one she recognized from Kevin's childhood, a memory that clawed at her heart. But he wasn't there. "Where are you, Kevin?" Panic took hold, tightening around her throat. The room felt like it was closing in on her as shadows began to coalesce, creeping toward her. She could hear the laughter again, a cruel and harrowing sound echoing through her mind. Suddenly, the ceiling began to crack, as if the very structure of the place was about to collapse. With a deafening roar, pieces of plaster rained down, and the shadows lunged closer, like creatures hungry for her despair. "No!" she screamed, backing away. The darkness rushed toward her, its grip tightening like a vice. And in that moment of despair, the door behind her slammed shut, sealing her inside with the impending chaos. Can she fight her way back to Kevin and escape, or will the shadows claim her as their own? The shadows shifted in the dim room, swirling like hungry beasts, and Sarah's breath quickened. Panic tore at her, urging her to find an escape. She stumbled backward, flailing her arms as the laughter grew louder, filling her ears with a cacophony of taunting joy. "Mommy!" Kevin's voice echoed again, almost a plea wrapped in sorrow. "Kevin!" she cried, desperation punctuating her tone. The darkness surged, a living thing, pressing against her chest like a weight she couldn't bear. She pivoted to the door, but it stood resolute, denying her exit. Her mind raced. There had to be another way. Recalling the flickering bulb, she turned and dashed toward it, hoping the little light could serve as a beacon. A gust of cold air swept past her, chilling her skin, forcing her to shiver. Shattered glass crunched beneath her sneakers, each step an assault on her senses, every sound louder than the last. The shadows flickered like angry flames, and she could hear whispers threading through the air, each word a mocking reminder of her failure. Sarah pressed her palms against her ears. "Stop it. Just stop," she shouted into the void, but the laughter twisted around her, invigorated by her fear. "Follow the light, get to the light," the whisper returned, insistent as ever in a desperate bid to escape the chaos closing in. She scanned the room. The light bulb hung above, brighter now, beckoning her nearer. But shadows clung to the corners, pooling like ink, creeping toward her with a slow, sinister grace. Sarah took a deep breath and darted toward the source of illumination as she neared. The light flickered and flickered, revealing shapes hidden beneath the surface of the shadows. Faces twisted, sorrowful, and somehow familiar. They reached toward her, their mouths moving soundlessly as if trying to convey unspoken horrors. Her heart stalled. "Who are you?" she gasped. Their eyes burned with fervor, each gaze a chill down her spine. A sudden thought hit her. Could they be the lost souls of this place? The realization chilled her blood. "Kevin needs you," one of the figures mouthed, the words coming out clear and haunting. "Choose, save him, choose?" Sarah echoed, bewildered. The implication was terrible. She could feel her heart hammering, the weight of this choice weighing heavily on her conscience. She stepped forward, shaking her head. "I can't just leave you here." The despair in the room intensified, resonating with the souls attached to the shadows. Their faces softened, and the shadows rippled, but the cold air around her thickened once again as the laughter drowned out all thoughts. Mommy Kevin's voice was now urgency itself. With renewed determination, Sarah broke from the impulse of fear. "I'll come back for you," she screamed, pushing past the aura of the lost ones. Even if she had to fight through every shadow, she would save Kevin. The door loomed again, only now it seemed to pulse, alive. Just as she reached for the handle, the walls groaned, and the shadows lunged at her. "No!" she shrieked, tearing the door open. Light spilled out, blinding her momentarily. Struggling through the onslaught of shadows, she stepped past the threshold only for the door to slam shut behind her with a final thud. Staggering, Sarah found herself in a long corridor. Flickering bulbs lined the ceiling, lighting her path as she hesitated. Farther down, another door stood ajar, and through it, she could hear Kevin's voice again, vulnerable and pleading. But the air thickened with tension as she approached. What would lie beyond that door? Was it salvation or another trap? Taking a deep breath, Sarah steadied herself, her stomach flipping with uncertainty and dread. She stepped forward, teeth gritted and heart pounding. Mommy, please, could she reach him before the shadows dragged her back into their clutches? Or had they already claimed her soul? The next choice loomed. Would she dare enter the unknown? With every heartbeat thrumming in her ears, Sarah summoned her courage, pushing through the door as if it were a veil between worlds. The moment she stepped inside, a flood of light enveloped her, washing away the shadows that clung so frighteningly to her existence. The room was a sanctuary of color and warmth, completely at odds with the horror of the ward she had just navigated. She blinked a few times, allowing her eyes to adjust to the bright surroundings. There, in the center, sat Kevin, surrounded by splashes of childhood joy crayons scattered, plush toys arranged haphazardly, and sunlight streaming through the large window. "Mommy!" Kevin bolted up, his face breaking into a grin that rivaled the sun. But as she took him in, a dread clenched in her chest. He looked the same yet different, the shadows of the ward flickering in the back of his eyes. "I've been waiting, Kevin." She lunged forward, wrapping him in her arms, feeling his small frame quiver against her. A wave of relief surged through her, but it was short-lived. Something was off. He felt too light, too fragile, like a whisper of what he used to be. "Mommy, come play." He pulled back, gesturing toward the colorful drawings taped to the wall. They were filled with swirling shapes and grotesque creatures, reminders of the visions planted in his mind by Dr. Hargrove. "Look how pretty." His eyes sparkled, but deeper within, something flickered, a veiled whisper from the shadows, longing to reclaim him. "No, Kevin. You can't stay here," Sarah urged, desperation heavy in her tone. "This place is an illusion. We have to get out. Now." She could feel the walls closing in, memories of laughter fading like echoes. "But I like it here." His voice trailed off, uncertainty weaving through his innocent facade. The shadows seemed to pulse in response. "They're my friends, Mommy. They understand me." "No," she exclaimed, shaking her head, her heart pounding. "This isn't real. They're not your friends. They want to hurt you." The room began to tremble, light flickering as if echoing her urgency. A cacophony of whispers swirled around them, taunting, reminding her of the choice she had made. "Join us, Kevin. Embrace the darkness, Mommy." "What's happening?" Kevin looked around, terror flooding his expression. In that moment, the door slammed shut, sealing them in. It wasn't just the ward that was alive. It felt now like this sanctuary held secrets too. "Stay with me, Kevin. I need you to fight." She grasped his shoulders, searching his gaze for the boy she knew, the boy who drew bright suns and playful dinosaurs. The shadows crept closer, turning the loveliness around them into a desolate feeling of dread. "You are stronger than this. Remember the park? Remember our drawings?" Kevin swallowed hard. "But they want to play. The shadows don't care about you." She pressed, her voice trembling but fierce. "They will eat you alive. You can't let them win." With each word, she saw a flicker of recognition in Kevin's eyes, something deep within the haze of innocence. The memories of laughter, the warmth of love, they were starting to break through the veil. "Mommy," he whispered, tears brimming, as if the realization was suffocating him. "I don't want to be lost, no." She cried, clutching him tighter. "You are not lost, Kevin. Look at me." The walls shuddered with anger. The shadows shrieked, reaching for them like hungry ghosts. Sarah held fast, determined to pull her son back from the brink. "The truth is buried here, but we can break through together. You are my son, and I love you more than anything." No matter what. In that moment of reckless resolve, Sarah saw the shadows pulling back slightly, frightened by the light of their connection. 1, 2, 3. She counted, readying for an escape, her heart pounding, as if counting down to freedom. She felt Kevin nod, his small frame firming. "Let us go, Kevin. Right now." Taking a breath, Sarah dashed toward the door, dragging Kevin behind her. The walls shook violently, the shadows roared, threatening to pull them in, but she pressed forward, feelings of love and strength igniting her will. Just as they reached the door, a scream erupted around them, a furious rage that echoed with a haunting chill. She twisted the handle and flung the door open, bursting into the blinding light. They stumbled forward, laughter fading as the warmth wrapped around them. Suddenly, the darkness recoiled as if stung, the whispers fading into the shadows they had just escaped. And out they tumbled, breathless but alive. Sarah held Kevin close, and they fell to the ground in a patch of sunlight, the world around them blooming with colors. They had made it. They were free. Mommy, Kevin's voice broke, fear and joy mingling. "I'm here, Kevin. You're safe now." She looked around, the bright sky open and reassuring above them. The ward, that dreadful place, existed somewhere behind them, but they had escaped its grasp. As they sat together, a moment of silence washed over the chaos, the sunlight warm and healing. In that quiet, Sarah made a promise to herself she would never let go of her son again, no matter what shadows lurked. "Let us draw a new world, one filled with light," she whispered, shifting their focus away from the horrors behind them. Kevin smiled widely, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, laughter bubbled forth, bright and innocent. They gathered crayons from a nearby picnic basket, the skies blue above, ready to create a new chapter together, one free from the nightmares that had threatened to consume them. Here, in the embrace of sunlight, they would find their way back to joy. And at that moment, with the weight of darkness finally lifted, Sarah knew they had won. The future still held unknowns, and they would face them together. But as the sun shone down and laughter erupted from their hearts, one final call echoed in the back of her mind. The mystery surrounding Dr. Hargrove, now dormant but not gone. Something told her deep down, this wasn't the end. And there you have it. If you loved this thrilling journey, you need to subscribe now so you won't miss our next exclusive story. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm, folks. Your support means the world. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this ending. I want to know what you think. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this conclusion. Let us keep the adventure alive together.